You too, and very good evening, everyone. Welcome back once again to MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 27th of February 2024. MSBS is very glad and grateful to have with us Bhante Adhibalo, podcast known as Phra Goh, conduct this weekly session. Bhante will be continuing on the subject on Maha Satipatthana this week. Bhante will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking a 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our minds, put our palms together, and welcome Bhante. Bhante.
Okay, thank you, Terence. So we shall pay respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow, second bow, third bow. And we'll do the opening chant, the homage. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adinādāna Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Kāmesu Micchācārā Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Musāvādā Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Surameraya Majjapamadatthāna Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so good evening to everyone and welcome back from the Chinese New Year. So I think we have like close to 2 or 3 weeks of break, and now we are continuing this Maha Satipatthana Sutta. We've already covered a few sessions. Last we stopped was at the Dhammanusati, the 4th foundation of mindfulness. But just a quick recap of what we've covered so far. We talked about mindfulness of the mindfulness of the body. That means in all postures, all physical activities, all manner of even visualizations or sensations of the body, we can be mindful of impermanence. And for feelings, also the same thing. We can be mindful of these all pleasant, unpleasant, neutral feelings. And we talk about states of mind. That means our spatial awareness, the cognitive functions, wherever we place our attention, a small area, large area, scattered, restricted mind, concentrated, not concentrated. We also can be mindful of impermanence. and eventually, now we're talking about the fourth foundation of mindfulness, which is this. We've covered this 5 hindrances, yeah? The last session, 5 hindrances and the 5 aggregates. So the 5 hindrances are basically the symptoms of suffering, right? Why we feel, there's craving, why there's greed, anger, why we have these stray thoughts, restlessness, why we have ill will. Sorry, it's mentioned here. So it's all mentioned at the bottom. Drowsiness, sloth and torpor, restlessness, and doubt. So all these 5 hindrances are part of the symptoms of suffering. So only an arahant, enlightened being, can overcome this restlessness. And only a non-returner and higher, that means non-returner and arahant, can overcome ill will and greed, sensual desire and ill will. So this is the more higher stages. And only a stream enterer can overcome doubt. So in short, whatever hindrances that arise, the way, the solution mentioned here is to take note how it arises, and we need to abandon them. So basically this is mentioning about right effort. So in the solution given by this Maha Satipatthana Sutta is right effort, and to overcome these hindrances with right effort. So of course we mentioned about other alternative solutions, things like sloth and torpor. We talked about more investigation, even things like chanting or having a Dhamma talk in the mind, even like walking meditation to overcome this drowsiness. So without further ado, we are going to move on to the next slide. Yeah, so all these phenomena are also impermanent. So if hindrances arise, do not worry, we use the right effort to overcome. So the previous slide talks about right effort, whereas down here, straight talks about observing how it arises and pass away. So interestingly, hindrances cannot be easily just observed. Like the example or the case which I often give, this Paccala Sutta, where Venerable Moggallana was nodding and falling asleep. The Buddha mentioned not to pay attention to the sleepy sensation. So if we were to follow this step straight away, to just observe the arising and falling of the sleepy sensation, most people will fall asleep. And equanimity, if it's not well developed, you'll get sucked into that stronger hindrance emotion. Yeah, the hindrance is a very strong emotion, so you need a stronger positive emotion, unless the mind is has certain kinds of insight-related samadhi that maybe like an anagami or an arahant, they can overcome greed and anger. If not, the mind will be easily sucked into these hindrances. Right? So we need to have a lot of right effort to overcome these hindrances. Right? So the temporary kind of solution we are sort of giving is that if a person faces anger, we use loving kindness to overcome. If a person faces greed, then we use either impurities of the body, or we think of impermanence to overcome this greed. And for the rest, things like sloth and torpor, we can use investigation of the Dhamma, more investigation of impermanence on the 5 aggregates and so on. And if a person faces this restlessness of the mind, then we use maybe things like the breath meditation or reflection of equanimity on karma to make the mind more equanimous. And eventually on doubt, the short-term solution will be asking questions to overcome this short-term doubt. Okay, so these are the temporary kind of solutions, The long-term solutions I mentioned in earlier, you need to reach certain level of sainthood to overcome those hindrances. Okay, so next slide. So we've also covered the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. So this one straight up, they will tell you it's impermanent. So there's a case where a monk discerns such is form, such is origination, such is disappearance. So the Buddha straight up talks about impermanence on the aggregates. So you don't have to wait until the stock formula to appear. The Buddha describes it as impermanent straight away. So if a person wants to control or fixate on the sensations of the breath or sensations or whatever on the elements, this would be impossible because the nature of the sensations are impermanent. On the 4 elements and the 5 aggregates, they are changing all the time. Right? So the only way to so-called let the mind stay in the meditation theme, because the mind is always moving, mental formation always moving. So we need to recreate a new formation to supposedly have an illusion of it staying there. By nature, it's not staying there. It's always changing all the time. So we need to keep repeating and repeating and repeating. So it's part of the right thought and right effort. If we think we can just fixate the mind there and without consistently putting right effort and repeating the reflection, and we believe it will stay there, it will definitely run, because that's the nature of the 5 aggregates. It's bound to run. So we need to keep on so-called repeating. Okay, next slide. So we've the same kind of reminder on impermanence, observing how it arises and passes away. Next slide. Okay, so this is the continuation of the 5 clinging aggregates. So how does the 5 clinging aggregates work? Because the 5 clinging aggregates is basically the lens which we perceive the whole world. We need these 5 aggregates instrument. And the 6 sense media is basically the doorways of this experience. So the 6 senses are your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So these are the 6 senses. We have the internal and external sense media. Internal media are your sense organs. The external media would be the object, the sense object. Like for example, your internal media is your eyes. For example, your eyes, which you use to see things. And the external media would be, for example, like the screen in front of you. So that's the external media. So how does the 5 aggregate works? When you see something, first you need a form. So the external media is the form. And the external media won't exist without the internal media. So both are interdependent. Interdependent. So things exist because we perceive it. So the next aggregate would be feeling. Okay, starting from so-called in order, we talk about consciousness. Consciousness means awareness. So that's the 5th aggregate. So we are aware. So our eye consciousness arises depending on the external form. So that's the 1st aggregate. And depending on your eye organ. So eye consciousness arises. So that's the 5th aggregate. So we covered the 1st and the 5th aggregate. So in between, how does this consciousness arise? Because you need mental formation. That's the 4th aggregate. Your consciousness is not omnipresent all the time. Your consciousness is not omnipresent all the time. It's happening moment to moment. You're aware, aware, aware. So how does this awareness arise? Is because you rely on mental formation. When it arises, is due to mental formations. And we have, let's say, looking at the screen, we have perception. Whether we understand the words, we've learned the words before. So this is perception. Based on your memories, we cognize all these words. So that is the third aggregate, perception. And the second aggregate is feeling. Feeling, you find it pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So total, these are the 5 aggregates. So the 5 aggregates, we call it nama rupa. Nama means the mind, rupa means matter. So matter would be the 4 elements, the things that are so-called tangible, the 4 element sensations, the screen, tangible, and we have the mental aspect, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. So these are the 5 aggregates. So they actually appear very fast. It's like 5 in 1. So when you look at the screen, all 5 aggregates will already be activated, working. So I'm just going to read through these 4 pointers. This is the case where he discerns the I, he discerns forms, he discerns the fetter that arises dependent on both. So interestingly, they want to know the fetter means the defilements, dependent on both. So seeing itself, your eyes itself and the image itself, no defilement, no suffering. But why we suffer, why we feel aversion, or why we feel greed, or why does the hindrance arise, is because there is fetters, there are defilements. So this is very related to the first point when we talk about the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances are also, some of them are part of the fetters, except for the sloth and torpor part. The 4 hindrances are actually part of the fetters. Okay, he discerns how there is the arising of an unarisen fetter. So again, this is part of the right effort to understand how these unwholesome qualities arise. And he discerns how there is the abandoning of a fetter once it has arisen. And you must know how to abandon it. And the last point, and he discerns how there is no future arising of a fetter that has been abandoned. So this is part of the, again, right effort, the 4 right efforts. You need to perfect this state of mind where there is no unwholesome qualities arising. So you cannot just say, I want to have right mindfulness but no right effort. So all the Noble Eightfold Path is intertwined, it's all linked together. You need to have the right contemplation or the right thought to overcome the unwholesome qualities, right? So it's all together. So the same formula is repeated through the other sense organs, like your hearing, right? Your ear, nose, tongue, body, and intellect. So the mind, the sixth internal and external media would be your intellect. Your mind organ and the object. So the object would be your thoughts. So these are the 6 senses. Next slide. So again, mindful of impermanence, all these things will change. And next slide. Okay, so up to this point, any issues so far? So we've covered the 5 hindrances, which are the something like the suffering, symptoms of suffering. We talked about the cause of suffering, which are the fetters, how it arises, understand how the fetters arise through the 6 sense media and the 5 clinging aggregates. And now we talk about cessation of suffering. So all these Dhammanusati, the mindfulness of the phenomena, is arranged in a way more or less in line with the Four Noble Truths. So now this is the cessation part, the 7 factors of awakening. How to go against the stream of craving. Okay, there's a case where there being mindfulness as a factor for awakening present within, he discerns that mindfulness as a factor of awakening is present within me. or there being no mindfulness as a factor of awakening present within, he discerns that mindfulness as a factor for awakening is not present within me. So again, this is part of the right effort series. Then the next point, he discerns how there is the arising of unarisen mindfulness as a factor of awakening. So now this is talking about wholesome qualities. And he discerns how there is the culmination of the development of mindfulness as a factor of awakening once it has arisen. Okay, so these are the first of the 7 factors of awakening. Then you have the other factors mentioned in the last point. The second factor would be analysis of qualities, that means the investigation of the Dhamma. And the third factor would be persistence, or the effort part. The fourth factor is rapture, or some would translate as joy. And the next factor is serenity or tranquility. And the next factor is concentration. And the last factor is equanimity. So these are the 7 factors of awakening. So they appear as a chain reaction, or like a domino effect. So everything is strongly linked to this mindfulness or right mindfulness. So everything we've covered so far, from the first lesson, from mindfulness of the body all the way to now, it's talking about this, mindfulness as a factor of awakening. So if a person is always mindful of impermanence in the body, the feelings, the mind, the dhammas, always mindful, then it's part of we call analysis of qualities. So you're always mindful of the impermanent nature, understand how the fetters arise, how the fetters are abandoned. So all these are part of investigation. And you are very persistent, you put on the right effort, you keep on continue to generate this mindfulness. And once you have these first 3 factors, the 4th factor will arise. So this is called rapture. And it's called rapture. So if a person do have some kind of detachment, they reduce clinging, this Dhamma, joy, will arise naturally by itself. You cannot force it out, you cannot fake it out. It will appear as a byproduct. Like I mentioned before, it's a domino effect. So you need to apply the first 3 qualities: mindfulness, analysis qualities, and persistence. Then this rapture will arise, and the rapture again over time will subside. You cannot just hold on to rapture and stay there. You need to keep on applying the first 3 factors: mindfulness, analysis of qualities, persistence, and rapture will eventually subside. You'll get this tranquility, this calmness of mind, and this calmness will over time develop concentration. So this is the insight-related concentration. It is not the jhanic concentration. So some people want to know the difference. The jhanic concentration require one to enter jhanas first to experience rapture, whereas this particular sequence require one to be mindful and so on, and you experience rapture first before entering concentration. So it's the other way around. So the insight-related process will require detachment and experiencing rapture before coming down to concentration. So eventually one will have equanimity. So again, this is insight-related equanimity, nothing to do with the jhanas. So the points mentioned here, rapture, concentration, and equanimity, in this particular 7 factors of awakening, is got to do with impermanence, or the reflection of impermanence. Okay, so as you can see in the picture on the right, so this is the so-called artistic symbolism of the Muchalinda event after the Buddha got enlightened a few weeks. There's this heavy storm that kind of rained heavily, and this Naga king came and sheltered the Buddha. So people call it the Muchalinda Naga. Actually, the Buddha was under the Muchalinda tree. Muchalinda tree. So people call it the Muchalinda Naga. And the artists depict this Naga with 7 heads. So 7 heads represent the 7 factors of awakening. So in this upcoming meditation retreat in June, we'll be using this as a theme for the retreat. So more details will be out in the poster first week of March, as Terence has mentioned. So these are the 7 factors of awakening. So these 7 factors are like a tug of war. It's like a tug of war. It's because we are going against a stream of craving. So whenever we are applying the first 3 factors, mindfulness, we're investigating the impermanent nature of the factors and the aggregates and so on, and we apply persistence, it's like rowing the boat against the stream, rowing against the currents of craving. So if we row, put in enough effort, enough force, we will make some progress against the stream. But once we lapse this so-called mindfulness, we lapse the effort, then we will be going with the stream again. So if a person do make progress in their practice, let's say they experience rapture and serenity, and they start to slack off, then they'll go back to square one. So the craving will take over, and if they want to continue the practice, it's a bit hard to start off with this serenity. They need to start from square one, depending on how detached their mind. So they need to start back from square one, mindful the first 3 factors again, and they will have to re-experience the rapture. If let's say a person has already gone past rapture, let's say they experience concentration and equanimity, and they are always very mindful. So if they continue these so-called the first 3 factors, they won't experience the rapture anymore, unless craving and clinging takes over and they have to go through the process again. Then they'll experience the sudden surge of rapture, and the mind will come down and eventually have this concentration and equanimity. So this is, I would say, a bit like a roller coaster. Ups and down depending on how much effort you put into so-called maintain this mindfulness. So again, the next slide. So this phenomenon, again, it's subject to origination and passing away. And interestingly mentioned, internally on mental qualities in and of themselves, or externally on mental qualities in and of themselves. So we've covered the internal media, external media. So interestingly, a person can focus their attention internally and practice detachment, or they can focus externally and practice detachment. So it depends on how you reflect on impermanence. And again, like mentioned in previous slide, sometimes the mindfulness will be absent. So when it's absent, then the factors will be gone, the 7 factors of awakening will be gone. And if the mindfulness is present, it will slowly trigger this chain reaction. Okay, so this is passing and origination formula. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'll cover until here for today, because it's 9 o'clock. I don't want to be too heavy. Let you absorb the theory first. Any questions or issues from anyone?
I have a question.
Okay.
Just you mentioned about the ruptured, the one experience. It's not something that we can control or to sustain. Is there a practice where one is trying to maintain, like for jhana training, they would say try to maintain in that stage, like first jhana, try to stay in that stage. Is there a way, and is there a discrepancy, or is this a different method that you mentioned?
Okay, very good question. So the rapture mentioned here in this process is very fast for a while one. It's different from the jhanic rapture. So the jhanic rapture can maintain there, the rapture in the first and the second jhana can maintain there as long as a person continue to input the cause. That means let's say they watch the breath, for example. They continue to keep on reflecting on the breath, and they're able to sustain this rapture. However, these 7 factors of awakening, if a person sustain the reflection of impermanence, the rapture won't last. It will be very fast. It will appear and sort of disappear very fast. And this rapture is a different quality from the jhanic rapture. It's a different quality. And the only thing that can maintain, if let's say a person really put in effort and so-called maintain these 7 factors of awakening, the only thing that can maintain long is the concentration and equanimity aspect. So that's the highest peak of the roller coaster. So once you lose the mindfulness, then you go down. Go down back to the, no, you need to start from scratch.
So there's some level of intention as well.
Yeah, correct. So we call this positive desire. We call it chanda. So we call it part of persistence, part of right effort. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Any other questions? Okay, there is no issues, then we go for a break. Okay, so I'm going to give an example first. So if a person want to experience these 7 factors without the jhanas involved, like in our routine, some meditation, for example, impurities of the body meditation, when we think of impermanence, that might trigger the 7 factors of awakening without including the jhana. So there's no interference, there's no mixing the jhanas. When we do, let's say, the 4 sublime states meditation in our routine, there's a bit of mix. Like when we wish all beings well and happy, okay, that's purely like for example, the first jhana. So there's no vipassana yet, there's no insight yet, there's no triggering of the 7 factors of awakening. But once we think of impermanence, then there is a trigger of these 7 factors of awakening. So there's a combination of both the jhanic concentration and vipassana concentration. So hopefully that clears the later you can for you to experience. Yeah. Okay, so if there's no further issues, then we go for a break, 5-minute break, and we'll be right back for the guided session. Okay, let's see who else has return. If you're ready, then can turn on.
I asked, how do you know you are actually experiencing the enlightenment and reach?
Your voice is breaking up. You need to repeat your question.
Okay. How do we know that we are actually experiencing the 7 factors of enlightenment in the meditation itself?
Okay, so the idea is you need to keep reflecting on impermanence. If let's say suddenly there's a joy arise by itself, you feel like a sudden surge of joy arise. Doesn't have to be very strong. The strength depends on the concentration. If a person has concentrated mind before that, then the joy will appear stronger. If a person doesn't have samadhi before that, then the joy will appear weaker. So the joy will be an indicator that you're on that track. You have triggered this chain reaction.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, all right. Okay, anyone else? Any issues? If not, we can start, yeah? Okay, so we can mute the mics, okay. Find a comfortable position, make sure your back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, we start off with the impurities of the body meditation. So this is using our eyes closed, so we are using actually the mind sense door, mind sense door. And we're going to visualize the hairs, all the hairs of the body from head to toe. So the hairs itself, or any object, any sense object, is subject to clinging and attachment. So when you think, first thing of hair, any craving towards the hair, any greed or anger, you like your hair or not, or you dislike your hair, dislike the fashion. So these are the fetters and the defilements and the hindrances. So the way to abandon or the way to overcome this hindrance, we need the right reflection, this Noble Eightfold Path. So it starts off with the loving kindness, part of right thought. So we're going to wish the hairs well and happy. Every time you conjure a new image, a new sense door contact, it's a new condition for clinging. So we need to intentionally apply the right thought. Wish the hairs well and happy. New patch of hair arise, wish it well and happy. New patch of hair, well and happy. So the hairs is part of mindfulness of the body. And while we are visualizing, that's part of the Dhammanusati, mindfulness of the phenomenon. We are using the sixth sense media, the sixth sense door. And we are applying the right thought, wishing the hairs well and happy, and we're applying right effort. So effort means repetition. Keep on wishing the hairs well and happy. So effort here doesn't mean push, no forcing and coercion. So it's more on repetition. And you need to observe the state of mind. Is it scattered or is it calm down? So this is called mindfulness of mind states. If the mind is getting calmer, means you're on the right track. If it's getting more agitated or more restless, more anxiety, that means something is wrong. That means there's some kind of unrealistic craving. So the reason why we keep repeating the right thought, that is to overcome the hindrance. And once you let the mind autopilot, it will naturally flow along with the currents of craving. So this is the samatha phase of this impurities of body meditation. We wish it well and happy, but not leading to any jhanas. So when the mind is quite settled down, this is the minimum requirement for the reflection of impermanence. And if you find your mind quite steady, quite calm, quite stable, then we can go ahead and reflect on impermanence. All the hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So it keep growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can keep on labeling impermanence, or whatever label associated with impermanence. You can call it origination and passing away, like in the suttas, birth and death, rising and falling. Just pick a favorite. And the main thing is keep repeating. So whatever happens, keep rowing the boat, keep on reflecting on impermanence, all the signs and symptoms of whatever being triggered, whatever being activated, these factors or no factors, doesn't matter. Treat them as byproduct. You know it's there, but keep rowing the boat. Keep on reflecting on impermanence, birth and death of the hair. So this Arahant Sivali can get enlightenment through reflecting on the impermanence of the hair. So it depends on how much of the effort you have, how much concentration before that, how much wholesomeness you have in the mind, how much merit. And in the meantime, we can observe these hindrances or these fetters. How can they be avoided or reduced? By applying this right mindfulness and right effort. Keep on reflecting on impermanence. Keep investigating this birth and death of the hair. How does the state of mind change? Has it surpassed the normal state of mind? Surpass your high score? What's the level of peace? And this visualization itself contains the 5 aggregates, so it can also reflect on the impermanent nature of the 5 aggregates. So the form aggregate is the image of the hair, or the 4 element sensations associated with producing the image of the hair. So whatever movement, whatever density or heat or whatever, so these are the 4 element sensations when you generate the image. And you also have the feelings, whether you like the sensations or like the image or don't like the image or find it neutral. And you have the perception aggregate, like the labels you call the hair. You call it a young hair, old hair, black hair, white hair, so on and so forth. So all these perceptions. And mental formation is every time you generate a new image, there is a new mental formation. And eventually consciousness. Consciousness is the attention, the awareness. Like if you're visualizing the hairs, then you're using the mind door consciousness. If you're hearing my voice, then you're using the ear consciousness. So you can reflect on the impermanent nature of the 5 aggregates. So this is part of investigation of the Dhamma. So the idea of this insight is to not hold on to any of the, especially the last 4 factors of enlightenment. Emphasis is on rowing the boat, turning the Dhamma wheel, keep on having the right effort, right mindfulness, right investigation. Okay, then we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can you tell the hairs not to go through birth and death? So the next part of the body, we are going to think of the nails, fingernails and toenails. May they be well and happy. So without impermanence, that's the samatha phase again, so there will be some form of clinging, and you can observe the difference in the state of mind. And you can figure out which state of mind is coarser, which one is more refined. Okay, and now we're going to think of the impermanent nature of the nails. All the nails go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. And we can think of the nails growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can keep labeling impermanence or any phrase or word associated with impermanence. So we need to keep labeling this part of right thought and right effort. It will produce this wakefulness and convert this observation into wisdom. If you just watch the image only, if it becomes like watching movie, then you kind of get dragged into the dramas, so the mind will produce unnecessary dramas. So you need the right thought to realign, anchor back the mind, keep on reflecting on impermanence. And we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through birth and death? And the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the teeth, all the teeth inside the mouth. May they be well and happy. And all these teeth are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the teeth growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can keep labeling impermanence. Then we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth and death? So the next part of the body, we are going to think of the skin. We wish the entire skin from head to toe well and happy. And all this skin are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of them growing and falling, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can keep labeling impermanence. And we can ask ourselves, are this skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through this birth and death? Okay, so the next phase of meditation, we are going to familiarize ourselves with the four element sensations. So there's no need to visualize anymore. Huh? So part of the mindfulness of the body, mindful of the four elements, earth, fire, wind, water, element sensations. Earth is any hard or soft sensations. Fire is hot and cold. Wind is fast, slow movements. And water is moist or dry sensations. So we're just going to feel the entire body. So whatever sensation arises at any part of the body, we are going to wish them well and happy. So there's no need to imagine, no need to superimpose, don't have to purposely create any sensation. Let them appear naturally by themselves. So all these are real-time evidence. And we call this the body sense door, using the nervous system. And these 4 elements are also part of the 5 aggregates. You need to give it a label, that's perception, and you need the body consciousness to be aware of the sensations. And the sensations may have different feelings, may have painful feelings, or pleasant feelings, or neutral feelings, where you wish them well and happy. So first phase is to make peace with them, wish them well and happy. Okay, so your mind is relatively calm, then we can take note of this state of mind. We call this the baseline kind of emotion. Okay, and now we're going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy. So this is called expanded mind. So we're going to wish all beings in all directions. Don't have to purposely push or force, just a gentle wish. And we let the mind extend naturally by itself. However far you wish to extend doesn't matter. And in that widened sphere of attention, whatever sensation appear, we are going to just wish them well and happy. A new sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. So we change the label to all beings. New sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. So they may appear inside the body or outside the body, near or far, doesn't matter. You detect something only, then we wish all beings well and happy. So we try not to visualize. We're using the non-discriminative method, and we try to reduce as much unnecessary reaction as possible. If we visualize I don't know, cute looking creature, then we might have a certain emotion. If we visualize maybe a scary or dangerous creature, then there might be a different emotion. So we try to avoid that. So use the lowest common denominator, the 4 elements. Any sensation appear, then we make this loving kindness as boundless and non-discriminative as possible. We keep on wishing all beings well and happy, and if all the conditions are right, you have the right thought, right effort and everything, then one may activate this right concentration. So again, this is the jhanic concentration, not the vipassana concentration. So if there's any increment of joy and happiness compared to the more neutral baseline emotion from earlier, and that's the indicator of the first level of concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rowing the boat, keep on wishing all beings well and happy. So the jhanic rapture or joy is not as transient as the vipassana version. As long as you keep on putting the right thought and right effort, then the sort of factors or the symptoms of this concentration will be there. Okay, now we switch to the insight edition. So we're going to reflect on impermanence. So all these sensations, we observe how they arise and pass away. How to cultivate a more unconditional loving kindness. So we keep on labeling impermanence as well. So there's ingredient of observation, the evidence is the sensations, part of right mindfulness, and need right investigation, right thought, keep on labeling impermanence. So regardless of what happened, keep on rowing the boat, mindful of impermanence, keep labeling impermanence. Okay, if the joy and happiness start to disappear, one may experience this neutral and refreshing kind of emotion, so we call that equanimity. So in this current phase, there's a mixture or combination of both jhanic and vipassana kind of equanimity. So the one where we did on the impermanence of the hair, nails, teeth, skin, probably just equanimity without the jhanas, but now this one has combination. So it might feel a bit more dense. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence, keep rowing the boat. Okay, then we move on to the next sublime state, which is compassion. So compassion is to overcome this cruelty, part of the and we are going to wish all beings may they be free from suffering. What kind of suffering? All beings, regardless of their health status or wealth status, as long as they cling on to the aggregates that will result in tension, stress, and suffering. So whenever we detect any sensation, as long as we get pulled into the dramas of the story, then that is already clinging. So to avoid this clinging and suffering, we need to stay grounded, keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. So the emphasis is on the wish and less imagination. So we have the evidence on the elements and label to wish all beings free from suffering. So earlier on we covered about the 5 hindrances. One is called restlessness and worry. Conventional kind of compassion requires you to worry for other people. Is that person okay? Have I helped them enough? Yes, all these are hindrances. So these are very draining for the mind. So now we are doing the opposite. We are learning to recharge the mind, the middle way compassion, not the mundane compassion. So this one requires us to not go into the story, not to worry and over dramatize. Come back to the evidence, sensations. May all beings be free from suffering. Okay, and if you have all the right conditions, you have the right thought, right effort and everything, it will trigger this right concentration. So if your compassion can feel joyful, then that is the concentrative kind of compassion, normally associated with the second level of concentration, the second jhanas, slightly different from the first jhana. Still more or less the same emotions. And regardless of what you experience, keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. Okay, so the so-called joy will remain as long as you keep on maintaining the reflections, keep rowing the boat. Okay, so now we switch to the insight part, and we're going to reflect how to overcome this suffering. That is to not cling on the 5 aggregates. So we are going to shake off this clinging with impermanence. So the same thing, any sensation you observe, then we keep labeling impermanence. Observe how they arise and pass away, and keep reflecting on impermanence. Okay, due to time constraint, we're just going to leave with a gentle reminder in all activities, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, as long as we are mindful of impermanence, then that would be this right mindfulness. And with that, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session. Informally, we still can generate right thought. Okay, any issues, problems, questions? No, all okay. And then we can end with the chant, dedication chant, Anumodana. Akasata ca Bhumata Devanaga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Cirang Rakantu Loka Sasanang Etavata ca Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Dedication of merits to departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyadayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyadayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyadayo. And aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu. Yavani Bana Patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we can pay respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, so that's the end of tonight's lesson. So next week would be the first week of the month. No theory, just purely Q&A, no live stream. Any announcements from Terence? No? Okay, then if not, good night. See you all next week.
Thank you, Bhante. Good night.
Okay, no problem. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.